We continue to see injustices throughout our city, which has cost the Denver residents and taxpayers millions of dollars in police brutality lawsuits. Together, Colorado aspires to be an anti-racist organization and strives to center race in all of our work for human dignity. Question: how would you bring a historical, structural, and current racial context to issues in your role as mayor of Denver? What personal and professional experiences related to race would inform your approach?
Mike, you're first on this.
Thank you. I think I'll talk first about the personal experiences and then about the structural approaches. I'm proud of the fact that every job that I've had since I left college has been dedicated to serving communities that have been underserved and communities that are communities of color. From my first job teaching high school English in Greenville, Mississippi, in a small town in the Mississippi Delta, to coming home and being a school principal to 3 different schools, to serving as a state senator in Northeast Denver, where when I first got elected, opened an office in the Holly, in what was then the most underserved part of our district, so that for those 10 years, people always knew exactly where to find me if they had questions, but mostly so I had the chance to listen each day to the issues and concerns that people had. Over the last 3 years working at a foundation whose fundamental purpose was about serving communities who've been underserved and making sure kids and families have access to opportunity. What that work reveals for us is that there is far more work left to be done than we may have imagined. When I first started working in Mississippi, people would say, wow, what's it like to work in a place that's so racist? And then I would come home and look at the fact that if you look at the state that has the worst outcomes for kids of color trying to get through and graduate from college, that state is not Mississippi. It's not Alabama, it's not Tennessee, it's the state of Colorado. And we know those gaps have been created here not by race-neutral policies, and they won't be fixed by race-neutral policies. That's why I think we're going to have the courage to look at where those structural components of racism are and how we effectively undo them. I'll just say this was when we first built the Deerfield Fund. This was the idea of a race-based fund had not been built yet in this kind of way to close the wealth gap. And we went to banks. Many banks wouldn't take us because they said they wouldn't do a race-based fund. We found one bank that would. It was First Bank. And when we did that, we then started a momentum to say, if one state can do this, if one city can do this, the rest of the country can. After that, we then said, you know what, we should support those partners, so we moved all the assets from our foundation, from the bank we were in, to First Bank. Because if you're going to stand up and show your values to stand with us on dismantling systems of racism, we should, as leaders, make sure and support and build those organizations that do. So for me, this work is going to be about listening, and listening early and often to communities of color about what their experiences are, what their frustrations are, what the needs are, and then being able to look at not just what the lived experience is, but what the systems are that build those experiences, and be courageous and clear-eyed about what it's going to take to tear them down.
Thank you. Perfect timing. Kelly.
I just have to say, I do support minimum wage. I do support paid family leave. I provided it to my employees at the chamber, and I would ask to be better represented in my beliefs. Let's talk about my personal experience in life around race and what I intend to do as your mayor. My husband was Ojibwe, which is a Native American tribe. We grew up in Montana. We moved to Denver because in rural Montana, a white woman and an indigenous man would be very challenging. So in 1986, we came to the city, and frankly, it was much better for us as a family. That said, at a young age, at 22, I started to fully understand my privilege as a white woman because I saw it just by experiencing life next to my husband. We had 2 daughters. One of my daughters can pass as white. My other daughter did not. My experience in life was you prepare your daughter who is not white passing in a different manner. Because her life and experience was different. Every time we went to the airport, I could guarantee you my husband and my youngest daughter were pulled out of that line. My older daughter and I walked through. And I think, again, as a mom, it made me extremely aware of the racism in our nation and the challenge. And to love someone so close, I think it embedded in every single position I've been in. I look through a racist lens as best as I can, but I also know I have my own blind spots. And I think maybe that's the most important thing I learned. So I've spent my career making sure I bring people around me, not just to be on committees or to be on my teams, to be at the highest level, guiding every single decision, pointing out the flaws and oversights and what I'm not seeing. I would do that as your mayor. That work resulted in some of the things I'm most proud of that I did at the Chamber. I built an entire arm of the Chamber of Commerce that focuses on nothing else but the inequities we see in our economy around race and gender. And I'm extremely proud of that work. I would hope to be able to build the same kind of systems so we could address these issues as a city. And I really appreciate your question. Thank you.
Thank you for your answers.